kids model what they become. They have incremental growth that I praise them for
It's like,
consistently.
so if
Because
a
a child is coming in and they're highly stressed and highly regulated, the last thing that you want to do is
welcome to the It Takes a Village podcast. I'm your host, Bayo Fagbamila Jr., and I'm here with a special guest today, Jaeson Williams. He is a former dean turned therapist. And Jaeson, I want to give you the floor just to give a little intro about yourself and your journey so our audience can know the perspective that you come from.
Sure. So I started out my school career in the mental health field. Um, I think what really drew me into mental health was really just by chance. In high school, we need to take an AP class, and at the same time, I had an Instagram name that I needed a name for my Instagram, basically. So in the class that I chose, which was the AP Psych class, there was a part of the brain called the Broca's area, which is responsible for recognizing language. I thought the name sounded cool. I thought the function of the brain sounded cool. And it was the first thing I learned about mental health, or at least about the brain in general. And I think from there, I've just been on a rabbit hole of figuring out what the brain could do and how we live with that. So as I went through college, the goal was always to be a therapist, but I had the opportunity to work in the education field where we met. And I think while being there, I understood more how important it was to focus on the mental health, and it kind of made me more excited to eventually make the switch, which I did today. So that's been my journey. It took a little roundabout turn, but I think every step of it has been very intentional and been very directed. And I thank God for the experience.
Yeah, I think that, you know, no journey is a straight one. You got to go different places and spaces to inform your thinking, inform your theory, inform your philosophy, because you can't just be in school, as we know, and just reading it's different than being in the field. So
Mhm.
when you speak about, let's get into the, like you speak about, the brain development and, where do you see children now, just in taking a step in the dean lens, where do you see children coming into school? Like, what are some of the observations that you've noticed in the school building for incoming kindergartners?
Um, I think for how far society has advanced with like technology and being able to educate and just to shape child experiences, I think people have been given a lot more agency with how to raise children. I think society has taken a shift away from, okay, this is what you do at this age, this is what you do at this age, to a lot of individualized parenting styles, which, for long story short, I think kids are stimulated way more now than ever before entering into the school building. So they're used to a certain level of engagement, it's used to a certain level of entertainment and dopamine and different types of stimulus that they receive at home because of the way that parent care has just changed over the years. And I think the education system is now catch or trying to catch up to this like demand that kids need. Kids need so much different. I wouldn't say more or less, but kids need differently now than they
Mhm.
did 10, 15, 20 years ago. And trying to pinpoint exactly what or how or where this need is coming from, I think that's a greater question that I'm still looking into myself. But kids have so much needs now that are individualized and different, and it's it's difficult. I think trying to pinpoint what people need generally is hard, but I think demographic wise, at least from where we were coming from, where we worked at, um, if I were to sum it up, the one thing that kids need is care. People need to care about kids. I think that's tough.
Yeah, period, period. You got to lead with care, lead with love. And I think one thing that resonated with me that you just said was that technology piece of children being stimulated and the dopamine hits, and they're coming in much more stimulated than ever before. And
Yeah.
that is from the technology, like you said, having a lot of children under the age of 3 have their own tablets. So, you see kindergartners coming in with iPhones and knowing how to use them, but you may not know how to write their name yet, and it shows in the way that they move social emotionally, in peer groups and in confidence. And I guess what I want to dig in a little bit more is like what I noticed as well is what you said. Like kids will come into that building and they're able to scroll, and change something at a moment's notice when they're not interested. You can't do that in the school building. You might be a visual learner and be consistently entertained on this tablet, but you may not be interested in what that teacher's talking about. So a lot of times that behavior manifests in, moving around, antsiness, distracting others, or, just not knowing how to stay in your body, in a space and place for 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
because they're children. And that's tough because then what happens is they get introduced to the principal's office in a negative way very early.
Hmm.
There's meetings and things of that nature very early in their life. So I guess when you see that happening and parents are struggling with that, what are some of the things that you help parents to bring light to that they may not know that they're doing that can help to alter or adjust their child's behavior?
Yeah, I think even before getting into the behavior, there is a type of like will and desire that kids have that shape how they think, shape how they internalize feelings, which then lead to their actions. And there's for parents specifically, they're like, how can I change what my kid is doing? And a deeper question is not so much what they're doing, but who is your child being? Like, what are they actively becoming right now in front of you? You're seeing something, well, parents are seeing something that is making them uncomfortable because parents have a level of self-identification in children, which, it makes sense. But usually when I'm talking with parents, at least now, it's how, like, where am I failing as a parent is what I'm hearing when parents ask, like, how can I change my child? And children have a lot of energy that schools are designed to kind of um they're to maintain and to control and to in that kind of aspect, but there's a level of harnessing energy and directing it into different avenues that parents are, I think, learning how to do slowly. And also apologies for my camera just randomly like
You got your own,
adjusting,
you got
and
your
I
own
don't know
little
what's
director,
going on.
your
I
little
got a whole team in the
cinematographer trying to
back.
get all the shots.
The staff is over there doing a great job.
Right. Got
But
a crew
yeah.
behind you.
Yo. But yeah, harnessing kids' energies. Like your kid is doing something. So I don't like using the word your kid, but children are doing things that we don't understand because we don't understand kids. If you don't understand what your child is doing and you don't understand how to speak into your child, then the school or outside third party help resources can only assist what the person who has the most access does. So I had experiences with children who misbehave often in class, who are screaming or throwing tantrums, who are just refusing to do work, and it's not because the kid is doing something wrong, it's because that's who the kid wants to be.
Mm,
How can we persuade children? How can I tap into something or bring something out of you that causes you to ride your own momentum to go forward?
mm.
There are some excellent high academic achieving children who behave horribly and on vice versa. So it's not even just about focusing on you need to focus on the grades because outside the grades, if the behavior is still bad, what do they focus on? Giving children goals and helping them internalize goals is one of the hardest things I think parents have to do, especially in today's age where there's a lot of outside information, a lot of outside models of human behavior that kids are exposed to. There's so many different shows, so many different people, so many different types of personalities that kids take on and they see, and they have to like sit with that in their reality. They see these high energetic, silly things that make them laugh and it makes them feel good. And they want to recreate that kind of experience in environments with people they care about at school and it becomes disruptive. That's, you know, kids model what they become. They have to see it first. Anything that you see your child becoming and doing, they've seen it to a certain
Mm,
extent. So they're just what I'm putting in, I'm putting out. I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm cursing, I'm fighting because I'm seeing screaming, yelling, cursing, and fighting. Or sometimes it's not as one to one. It could be whatever they're seeing has a opposite effect in them. So I may not see cursing and shouting, but I'm seeing silence and neglect, and I want to break through that silence and neglect with cursing and shouting. So
mm.
it's never like a one to one. It's almost like a Tetris game. Okay, I'm putting this here, putting this here. What's making the picture I want to see? So it's a complex game of figuring out the uniqueness of your child, which is it's hard. It's hard for anybody to do so. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'm loving what you're talking about because this is a common thread that we share. You're talking about the common thread of the uniqueness of your child. Every child is kind of its own and is their own entity, comes with their own, developmental pathways. And one thing that my core teaching right now is identity. And
Mm,
you're speaking about it right now. Who are you becoming? And who do you want to become? And
yeah.
this is some of the things that I've been teaching young people. And what you said, like all of those exposures, those outside forces, the from the tablets to the TV screen to the parents to the brothers and sisters to the people outside to the people on the subway, children are always taking in information. And when they take in that information, children's filters are not as good as an adult's filter. So they may take in way more and start to absorb things that are around them and borrow identities.
Hmm.
They may see something that may get a response. It might not be a positive thing, but they saw somebody maybe yelling and screaming in the home or outside of the home. And because that thing got attention, they're going to copy the same thing because it got attention, no matter if it's negative or positive. So understanding identity and exposing your child is so important, and showing and modeling what you said earlier. What is the model that you're providing for your children? Because look, this is tough being a parent. It's tough being a parent in, you know, by yourself or with a partner. And, the way that you show up is information for your child, how they will show up. I have a peer that talks about his 4-year-old daughter turns on the TV and she knows how to like voice command it to say workout, gym, and she does her workouts. And he was telling me about this, but it was like, why? Because she watches her dad do workouts. She goes to soccer practice with her dad, and
Hmm.
he's instilled, that taking care of your body is very important. So that baby who's 4 years old is already gotten a primary foundational, building block for her life established early. And I think that one thing that I noticed coming into the school building, if in kindergarten, you don't like to say it, but some children entering the kindergarten building on day one are already behind, and they're behind in not just who they are, but some kids really know are like, I think, let me say this. I think there's a expectation or an uncommunicated, you know, understanding what children should need as a foundation coming into kindergarten.
Hmm.
Not just, I brought them to school, here you go. Can you speak about some of the things that help, like when a child is entering kindergarten, like what are some of the foundational, I guess let's go academic first and then we can talk about social emotional. But like what
Mhm.
are some of those academic things that will help to prime your child for success walking into that school building on day one of kindergarten?
This is gonna sound very like super zoomed out perspective, but being able to feel like they can, like period. I can do something, or like there's a posture of being able to obtain things either by receiving it or by taking it. That there's a level of input you could put into your environment and get something out of it, and you're rewarded for that. So when parents are teaching kids how to hold pencils, how to say their name, and good job, positive reinforcement, things like that. The positive reinforcement is reinforcing self-agency. Like we have to give kids the ability to say, when I go to school, I can do something. Because when they can't and they're faced with reading and numbers and assigned seatings in 8 hours on the first day. It's it's a lot of um unwillingness to embrace challenge. And
Mm,
it seems like a high concept for kids, but kids pick up on it very, very easily. Kids learn how to walk, kids learn how to talk, kids are trying to gain from their environment. So even with the example where you have your peer and their daughter is doing the workout videos, I know that I can speak into this phone or into this remote, whatever, and get something out of the TV. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do more of what I can do. So it's like that's who you're becoming. You're becoming whoever you can be. So
mm,
giving children the opportunity to have success in front of you, praising them for doing a good job, and then relating that doing a good job can also be done in school too. It's like changes the whole perspective. I had a student who was new to kindergarten, like didn't start in September, but was new to kindergarten and was very academically behind where the other kids were. And it was like pulling teeth to try to get them to do anything in class because they just didn't, I don't want to write. I don't want to sit down. I don't want to do this. And then when you start to the positive regard, the unconditional positive regard, no matter what they're doing. Like I'm really proud of you. Like that took a lot. And they may not know all the words that you're saying, but kids pick up on this emotional energy very easily,
mm-hmm,
where it won't obviously that one thing won't fix the problem, but it gives you an avenue to now work because now they're responding to you. When kids are responding to you and they're interacting in your world and you're in their world, there's this exchange of ideas. There's this exchange of of personal wills. I'm willing to do this for you. What are you willing to now do next? So like even I remember one of the most recent things I had to do was a kid would come to school and he would just lay on the floor in the lobby. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to class. I'm just gonna lay here. And I don't recommend this for everybody, but sometimes I looked at him, I stood over him while he's on the ground, and I make him laugh. I make him laugh, make him talk, and now we're walking and talking. I get him into the classroom, and now he's there. Why? Because he's willing to have this exchange with me, and I'm willing to have this time with him. And then you see what kids really need. He just needed some attention. He didn't really. He was like, "I'm hungry. I didn't go to sleep last night." Didn't give him no food. Didn't make him take a nap. I just engaged with him, and he was good for the day.
mm.
So it's not always that easy. Sometimes it's just a lot more that you figure out along the way. But making kids feel like they can do something by engaging with them is the first step to any success in kindergarten. Your kids just have to engage with your kids.
I love that because one thing that I emphasize is the effort. Given that effort, that it's a lot of parents will chase perfection, you know,
Hmm.
write that A as perfectly as you can. It's not about perfection, it's about the effort that you give,
Yeah.
because when you show that effort, when you show that try, then that's where development lives, and if you can try and get 1% better every time you pick up that pencil, every time you come into the building, every time you touch the ball, every time you touch a book, you know that's where you will see that incremental growth. So I
Hmm.
love that you're sharing that with the kids. And I have this framework that I use actually for the students to help them to think about their own emotions. And when they're feeling like things are going crazy or whatever, I say you need to control your earth. And earth, the E in earth is for effort. And what is your effort that you're bringing? Are you bringing 10% effort? Or are you bringing 110% effort? The A stands for your attitude. What is the attitude that you're bringing? Because that growth mindset is very important. If you're going to be in a fixed mindset or a growth mindset with that attitude that you bring, you know,
Hmm. I'm gonna pen real quick because you're spitting right now. You're cooking, and I need someone that's related. Give me 1 second. 1 second.
I got you, bro.
You said you need to control your earth.
Yep.
Fire. Control your earth.
Control
Okay.
your earth.
Effort.
A,
Yeah.
attitude.
Hmm.
R is your response. Because when you respond to something, that means that you're thinking about something before you're doing it. Most of us
Mm.
in our children, in adults, we react.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to weigh your response versus your reaction.
Hmm.
That T stands for your thoughts because the thoughts will more than likely drive your behavior. You
Yeah.
know, you
Hmm.
I decided I had a thought to create and have a podcast and have you on it. And my action followed the thought.
Mm.
So if you control your thoughts, it will help you to make better actions. And then lastly is the habits, that H. What habits are you doing every day? You say that you want to be a good student, but what do good students do? What do students that get high marks on their scores do? And usually that child that is having difficulty with that will give you the outline on how to be a good. Well, you need to pay attention.
Hmm.
Well, you need to, do your homework. You need to practice. You need
Yeah.
to, they'll tell you everything.
Hmm.
But okay, be like, all right, oh, you know the road, you know the roadmap. What are you doing? What habits? Well, I go home and I play Roblox. Like, well, till how long? Till
2
7:30.
7. And then I watch Squid Games.
And then, yo,
Okay. Okay.
okay. Right. I'm mad. Dude, this is
Mm.
so true though. And that that
Mm.
that leads to something too of just like surveying what your young kids are watching, we could talk
Mm.
about that next. But yeah,
Mm.
controlling your earth is so important and teaching them at a young age because it is outstanding when you watch a child navigate a phone or a tablet. They know it better than adults a lot.
It's just like I'm gonna scratch my wrist right now. It's another part of the body. Like I'm gonna
Right.
this.
Just going, just boop, 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 boop. Like,
I'm gonna change the settings and all the on the iPads in school. I make all the icons this color on this page, this color on this
mm-hmm.
page, set the background for this. I'm like, spell house.
Right. Right. You could do all of this, but the
Man.
basics, my boy,
Yeah, yeah.
and so it's children are ready to learn earlier is what I'm trying to get at. They can
Oh, for
figure out all
sure.
this technology, but a lot of times parents are waiting till I don't know what grade and age, honestly, but they're like, they can learn that later, or they don't need to know that right now. And it's like, no, these children are primed to learn when they're born, you
Yeah.
know, and
Learning is a
exposure.
survival.
Learning is survival.
Yeah.
Bars right there. And it's so true. But you gotta, when you said something earlier about that positive reinforcement, and you say, hey, you wrote your name, good job. But a lot of times in our communities, where's the positive reinforcement at early ages? I see the Instagram and TikToks of the babies dancing, and that baby can dance, boy. Maybe that's what that baby was born to
Good
do.
job, baby. You killing it.
But
Ah, that's
but
so
when you
good.
got the whole house going, hey, Marcus, go ahead, do that dance, do that dance, like, do that dance, do that dance. Like you're feeling that child. you're filling them with love and attention and what you said earlier, care. And
Yeah.
that's the common denominator. That's what we all need to grow. And a lot of times I talk about these kids when I'm giving my speeches to them or having one-on-ones, I'm giving them the image of a plant. And like a lot of times our parents and our teachers are the gardeners, and
Hmm.
they are the ones that provide the light. They are the ones that provide the water. They are the ones that can check the soil. But never do you yell at that plant and expect that plant to blossom.
Yeah.
You got to check the soil. You got to check the light. You got to check the water. You got to check if there's weeds.
Hmm.
And then that child will be able to grow into what it's supposed to, what
Yeah.
he or she is supposed to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you use a plant, a metaphor, because plants are literally growing until they're dying, like people, obviously. So the ways that parents want to see their kids blossom, sometimes they either don't see it happen in the way that they expected it to, or they don't see it in like the season they want it to, and they try to, maybe I just need to give more light, or maybe I just need to give more water, or maybe, and they try to make a response based on the end goal of what they want their child to be, instead of and they care for the future image of the child in their brain, but the part of the child that they see in front of them may need something different.
Mm,
Like, yes, all plants need water, but at the level of water you need as a tree is very different than you need as a seed. So the level of input and the level of control and the level of discipline that they give to make their child a tree in seed form will stunt the growth. So there's like a ratio to it. And what I see the most in children who I are in my office often, or I'm calling home a lot for, is that the parents say, well, I do this and I do this and I plant and I water and I this. And then it's like, okay, what what are you doing that works? Like, what have you seen that works well with them? Well, I tried XYZ and it's not working, and I tried this and it's not working, and it's not working, and it's true. It's not working, but somebody is, your child is working on becoming something. They're still trying to figure it out. As much as it may seem like we've hit a hard road with them and they're getting in trouble at the same thing every single day, there's a kid who used to get in my office every day for hitting or for being, whatever. Every day, the teacher's like, I can't with him. But every day I talk to him, I see him getting incrementally better. And
mm,
it's the incremental growth that I praise him for
mm,
consistently, because I'm praising the fact that he's growing, not the amount that he's growing. I'm not expecting to get 50 million apples and a 50-foot tree. Uh, okay, now you're 2 blades of grass today. Good job. 2.5 blades of grass today. Good job. That's all we can do. And it's very easy to say, I'm gonna control my kid because it's my kid and I'm gonna make them into something great. You can make their environment, but you can't make the kid.
mm. Oh man, well, I love that you're talking about that because that incremental growth is still counts as growth. Whether you get 1 yard or 12 yards, whatever. I'm speaking in sports terms, but you know,
Hmm.
like progress is progress. And you said something like, sometimes the parents are expecting growth in a particular season, and everyone has a different design,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. I listened to this, I guess, the progress of a bamboo shoot,
Hmm.
bamboo tree, how they grow. And I guess they don't grow for like maybe like 3 to 5 years. They grow underground, actually. Not don't grow, they
Hmm.
grow underground. And then on that fifth year, they just shoot up out of the ground, and they're just like,
Hmm.
like, and they boom, 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 and they take over. But your child may be the development of a bamboo shoot. They
Yeah.
may be the development of a rose. They may be the development of an oak tree. Who knows? But like you said, the development of a seed and the development of a tree, they require different things, different amounts of water. So when we're continuously, thinking about, our child and growing, what do you see in a whole classroom? Like, what is like a classroom that has that care and that love look like? What's happening in that class? Because a lot of times we have this ideology like, okay, everyone's silent, everyone's backs are straight, everyone's, 5 point or 5 star position, whatever
Mhm.
a school might call it, and people call that learning position. But what is that? What does real growth and healthy development feel like, look like in the classroom?
It's interesting. I do think that there is a level of sitting up straight and being in learning position is functional for a child to be able to do that helps their growth. But I don't think like that is the measurement of how they're growing. I think a bigger measurement is letting a child, you know, put entropy in the environment, let them just naturally be. And then when it's time for them to now recollect and then become ready to learn, or they become a student, they put on the student hat again, then you're like, okay, I can make the adjustment. Kids who can make the adjustment from play to being themselves to now, they're adjusting really well, especially when they're able to do it and they're reading the room and they don't need the command to do it. One thing that I like to do is I let kids just be themselves until they're kind of like the I'm waiting, but instead of saying I'm waiting, I'm just standing there and now we're in line and we're not playing at recess yet because the three friends in the back are talking and the one in the middle is off the line somewhere. And then they start to figure out how to self-regulate. I'm not doing
Mm,
that so that they can like go sit down. Stop it. No, 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 no. But it's just to see like where they're at and how you respond to them. Sometimes you need a bop, but a bop, bop, or 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, and they're there. And sometimes you need a so and so in the back. Can you remind me of da 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 da? So it's I think in a classroom setting, knowing how each kid needs a reset is like that's how you actually care about the kid because the goal is to make them grow. But to make them grow, you have to know how they grow. So
mm,
I'll go into a classroom and everybody's silent and always doing the work. That may not even be the best environment for that child to grow because they're just under the control of the teachers in the room, which is not bad. Teachers should have classroom control, but to over control a child doesn't give them the opportunity to become a better student. They can just, that's how kids get passed through the system. A kid
yeah.
in kindergarten doing the same thing in first grade and same thing in fifth grade. It's because they just learned how to be under control and they didn't learn how to be a good student.
Mm,
So I'll go into a classroom and now interact with a kid and I'll shake things up a little bit. I'll put some fun in the room and then I'll see how the kids behave after the fun. They get right back to it. Then we give out these thing called like brag tags or whatever. We acknowledge the behavior. We acknowledge the being able to remain on task. Or I go into the classroom that's usually always quiet and I go in and it's and everyone's having a great time and then they never like kind of reset and the teacher hey guys it's just like okay like so some growth needs to happen here. Like they're able to behave, but that's just because you're controlling them. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's different when a child knows when it's time to transition back to learning from playing
Hmm.
and not scare them into it, or
Right.
control them into,
Or prompting them into it. It's just like I recognize for myself that it is now better for me to be quiet when the teacher is talking.
Mm,
They don't understand the level of how deep like that's rooting into them great character. Like, okay, I am respecting authority without having me to tell you you need to respect authority. It's 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 so much more rewarding to see a child go like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. And it's like, oh, he used to just run around and now he doesn't. That's good. That's
mm-hmm.
good. Rather than, all right, everybody get in line. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right, right. No, you're so right about that. And
So,
when you were speaking about, that positive reinforcement earlier, and that's one
mhm,
thing that I love to do. It doesn't matter if I'm lining up for recess or, walking around a classroom, but I will point out the model behavior.
mhm,
And you will see children quickly want to model and get positively affirmed as well.
Hmm.
So you're like, I see Marissa is over there working quietly, doing her reading. She's got her book out, her pencil is out, and she's working independently. Oh, I see Marcus started to do the great. Okay, Marcus is on task now. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, Malcolm is back there. All right. I see almost 85% is on point now. Oh, 100 now. Okay.
Yeah.
And you see that kids just want to be positively affirmed. Kids just want to be felt, called in a positive way as well. They want that attention, they want that love, they want that care. You can get classroom control management in positive ways as well, not harsh, abrasive ways of like raising your voice and becoming frustrated, which then usually leads to teacher burnout. We're in a space and place where teacher burnout and turnover is, I don't know, is it the highest ever? Like,
Well, it's the highest I've ever experienced it
right
personally.
in our generation, right?
No, but you make a good point. Like the way that you get control in the classroom, you're gonna have to do it again. If you don't
Mm,
want to be a yeller, me personally, I am not a yeller. That is in my back pocket for when safety is at risk and I need to or if I need to, if you're yelling or if you're using energy that you don't enjoy to use to control a classroom, you will have to keep doing that because that's what's working for you.
mm,
And if you really want to shift the dynamic in your room, you have to shift the dynamic in your approach. I've seen teachers go from being very timid and quiet to being the domineering, being able to control the room, and it works for the classroom control, but it does take a toll. It does lead to burnout. There is a level of collaborating that happens in the classroom environment. It's not all up to the teacher. There are kids in the classroom because you're a community. Everybody plays a role. So there are certain kids in the class who know for a fact they can switch it off and they cannot join in on the foolishness. And they're like, you know what, I'm going to help out Miss So-and-so today. Those are the kids that you talk to the side. Hey, I've been noticing X, Y, and Z in the classroom. Can you help me do X, Y, X, Y, Z? If you're experiencing burnout, you're doing too much by yourself. Ask for help from the kids in the room, not
mm-hmm,
because you're unable to do it by yourself. You're able to do it, but it is better for them to participate in the environment. There are kids who come to my office one time who I have never seen again. They're not perfect in class, but to the level of disruption that they had to get to, we come to an understanding like we don't have to come to that level. And it's very difficult. You're teaching multiple subjects a day. You're going through your grades that you're speaking to teacher. You have a couple of prep periods. It's hard. And I think because we're in a place now where a lot of classrooms have two teachers, figuring out the whole dynamic of how can we speak into certain kids? How can we, I don't want to say manipulate the population, but how can we influence the population of kids that we have in short clusters? Kids in the back are doing things that the kids in the front are not doing. How can we fix it and manage that up? And teachers do that by, switching the seats around and making a certain like phone calls home. So teachers do this, but I think it's like a second hand, it's like a passive intervention when it should be, in my opinion, the most foremost thing you do. Who are the players in your class? What are the roles that they serve? How can we emphasize these roles to the betterment of everybody around us? It's community building, like on point blank period.
oh man, yeah. The child needs to feel like they're a part of something, that
Yeah.
they're seen, they're useful. And that's a lot of times like a lot of our boys are like that. Like, they want to be helpful.
Hmm.
So you let them feel helpful by collecting the papers or passing out the pencils or
Holding the door or
holding
just
the door, simple things. And you affirm that. Thank you so much. A lot of times people say, like teachers will say, like, you're my caboose. Make sure that everyone is,
hmm
okay in the back of the line or whatever, or you're my line leader. I love that you're a great line leader. You stopped right at the edge before you did not turn the corner before I got there. Thank you so much, Dustin. You are an excellent line leader. And you
yeah.
see him like,
Yeah, me,
you know,
I'm the mom leader.
you
Stop running, guys.
yeah, guys, guys. Guys, stop.
No, Mr. Fagbamila is saying let's relax.
Right. He said, stop, calm down. Like last week, you made me cry.
Like, you threw everything on the floor of my office, but thank you.
Right. But thank you. I see that we turned a corner, my boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I think the key, theme is care, that positive affirmation for these kids. When you have a child that comes into your office consistently, if you're talking to a parent right now and this
Mhm.
child just a key thing that they're struggling with is emotional regulation. Like when they lose it, it's lost, until you find the pieces for them and help them. How can you help? What are some of the things that would be useful for a parent? How you help a child to, bring it back and learn to control themselves and regulate their emotions.
Yeah, I think first thing is recognizing that children cannot emotionally regulate themselves. They don't have a prefrontal cortex. They're missing pieces of their brain that we have as adults that allow us to be, collect ourselves. They don't have that yet. So, well, they have access to it through us. We have to model what that looks like. So if a child is coming in and they're highly stressed and highly regulated, the last thing that you want to do is introduce punishments or introduce discipline in that moment or try to make that moment a teachable moment. That whole scenario for a kid is about helping them calm down. Once whatever they may need, whether it be some time, whether it may need a moment of like space or separation, whatever can get the emotionality to a more like a neutral playing field so that they can then be poured into, because you can't pour into a cup if it's moving. So until
Mm,
it's like steady and still, then you pour into it. So what I usually do is I give every kid who comes to my office 5 minutes of just, I'm not saying anything to you. Here's 5 minutes to let me see where you're at. Are you calming down? Are you getting more erratic? Is it over now? Like I'm gathering data. So I think what parents need to do is when their kid is getting frustrated, instead of trying to control the situation, gather some data. Let it play out for a little bit. If your kid is in a safe environment, he's not in a danger to himself, he's not in danger to others, see what he does. See who he or she is becoming. And then you try to like, gear and shape that. Okay, what you just did earlier, like, I think it's important that we talk about. How did that make you feel? What did you want out of it? What did you get from it? Moving forward, do you want to do that again? And the answer is usually no, but they do it again anyways. But it's what are they communicating to you about their understanding of the events happening? That way they can then model that themselves. Okay, what am I doing? What do I want out of this? What's going on? And then you start to see the difference between the kids who are acting out because of the training that they have versus kids who are acting out because of the difficulties that they have, either biologically, emotionally, spiritually. There's a whole gambit of just understanding that we access to when we gather data. Like you have to learn your kids, learn them in their worst, learn them in their best. So, yeah, and I think parents usually take a level of, well, my kid is not feeling well, they're not doing good, so something must be wrong. Correct, something is wrong, but something can also get better about what's happening. Like this is part of the learning moment. My kid not meeting expectation, that's perfect. Now I can figure out how to make them meet expectation.
oh man, I appreciate you saying that. So I want to switch the lens and
Hmm.
to the therapist hat now.
Hmm.
And you've been speaking about this the whole conversation, but the brain seems to be like understanding of child development. A lot of times we are parents and we are teachers, but we don't have that strong understanding of child development and the things that you're saying, like, the prefrontal cortex and, is not fully developed yet. And, things of that nature. What are some, I guess, some non mainstream facts and information about child development, the brain, or the nervous system that would help to inform a parent that may be worried about where their child is at and how they, you know, put them at ease and help to guide and navigate them to, a better place and position.
Um, One of my favorite mainstream facts is that kids cannot register the word no, like to the negation of something or the not something until at the age of 3. Like if you're the kid, they'll say no, but they don't really understand how no functions in a world where they have possibilities. So you see whatever this thing right here, you're not supposed to touch it. It's no, don't touch it. It's they hear the don't touch it, but the no part of it kind of gives their brain a little like a glitch in the system. So it's like, wait, now I'm confused, but I'm still gonna go off of what I
Mm-hmm.
can like physically do. So that's fun fact. Kids can't understand no until 3. So if you want kids to do something different from what they're doing, um, gotta get some creative with your word choices. Um, I think with the brain and development over time, more people walk around with trauma than we realize.
Yeah.
In my new line of work, there's things that people bring up from 4 years old, kindergarten, third grade, that we wouldn't consider as traumatic, like the way that somebody talked to them on the line, the way how they got embarrassed, or the way that they felt, or the books felt the locker. The things that people carry impact the brain so differently that to us, we should just assume that at some point in your life that you have experienced a trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not a traumatic event, but the way that our brain has internalized an event, something is sticking with us that is kind of shaping or orbiting like the center of fear that's in everybody. Everybody has access to the spirit of fear. And there are things that kind of orbit around that spirit of fear that kind of say, okay, it's like a doorway. When this thing happens again, it opens a door for me to feel fear. So there's a level of your kid is afraid of something. Like all kids are afraid of something. And when we I don't want to say when you figure out what your kid is afraid of, but when you get the opportunity to see that firsthand, like what makes your kid retreat, like
Mm-hmm.
that's a big factor in how they're gonna make friends, how they're gonna just become people, because they don't understand no, but they understand fear. So the idea is that no is supposed to make them withdraw, but kids only withdraw when they internalize level of pain, suffering, or fear. So that's why when parents try to discipline, they try to get loud, or they use their physical discipline, or they take away something for the kid, and it may help the behavior, but it doesn't help the kid. I can take away your iPad. I can tell you go stand in the corner. I can give you 2 or 3 spankings, and you will maybe do that behavior differently, but you don't understand why. You have a fear now, you have an experience, you have a trauma. And we try
Mm-hmm.
to discipline children through making them traumatized. And it's like, yeah, like they learned, oh yeah, I got beat when I was a kid and that. And like you can say that now, you have a prefrontal cortex and you can compartmentalize, but before you got to the age where you can reflect and say, I used to get beaten, you used to get beaten. You used to like
Mm-hmm.
sit with that and live with it. And it shaped who we became. So this is not like an advocacy or a protesting of spanking children, to each their own. But I think that if you're trying to shape a child's brain into being the most optimal way possible, you limit the amount of exposure to fear, or I should say inauthentic like cases of fear. Like they will naturally find things in life that they're afraid of. They don't
Yeah.
have to become afraid of mom. They don't have to become afraid of dad. There's a different level to that, because that fear, you'll be 67 years old and realizing that you don't want to take care of your mom anymore because of the way that she spoke to you when you were in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like it didn't realize that until now, and I'm 60. It's just like, yeah, the body keeps the score. The fear sits there. Never make your kids afraid of you, but respect and fear, that's a whole nother gambit, a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is. And I think that right now we're in a very interesting place where we, as millennials, are surveying how we were raised and taking some of it, but not all of it, as to like law as how do we raise our children now.
Yeah.
We have, like you said earlier, so much information given to us that we're able to pick and choose what may be best for my child and my family, and not passing along generational traumas as well. And in our homes, if it's Caribbean or African or whatever, Indian, whatever, this or that, whoopings were a part of discipline and raising. And sometimes, yeah, we can get
Mhm.
them together quickly and efficiently with a pat on the butt, but not everything. Like you said something earlier, like I don't raise my voice unless it's like there's danger or something, like your safety is at risk.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think that's a good marker for parents as well. Like not everything deserves a butt whooping or a pop, like
Mhm.
sometimes, like, yeah, like, if a child is jumping off of the couch, all right, stop. And you might have to say it more than once, but if they're playing with the stove, you might have to pop their hand,
So
like,
that
yeah,
the fire doesn't do it.
yeah, like, yeah, so the fire doesn't do it. I
Yeah.
might have to have you afraid of that oven so that you don't just think that
Like,
because I'm cranking it that you're supposed to crank it too.
hmm
Because
hmm
that leads to fire and the gas and all of these other things that, crossing the street, some things you gotta like make sure that they get. There, there may be danger on the other side of this. So
hmm
this is not for you until I teach you or you're with me,
Yeah.
So that is a great paradigm and thought process for raising our next generation of children, because we don't want to continue to pass along that trauma. When you're speaking about so many people having trauma in the world, that we don't know, I learned about, ACEs. Have you heard of ACEs? Adverse childhood experience.
hmm
And I had an activity where you can count how many, like, oh, I was beaten, oh, I was, neglected, oh, like you can count them
hmm
up and be like, okay, man, I lived through a lot of traumas. You might not even know yourself,
Yeah.
so we all learn how to adapt and how to navigate, but I think that now we don't want to just be in survival mode. We want to thrive as parents
hmm
and as for our children as well. So that requires a level of intention to
Yeah.
detail as to how we raise our children. But
hmm
I think that's a great space for us to conclude the conversation, my guy. I think that we've given the people a lot of great information, for them to digest and help their child to become the best version of themselves. So I want to say thank you again, brother, for taking this time, sharing your knowledge, and
hmm
that's going to conclude our episode of the It Takes a Village podcast. And I hope you have a good one, and everyone take care.